MegaHistory presents.
The air in Alexandria tasted of ash and salt. Beyond the palace walls, the Mediterranean hissed against crumbling stone, as if the sea itself mourned what Egypt had become. Roman siege engines groaned in the distance, their shadows stretching like skeletal fingers over a city that had once glittered with the wealth of pharaohs. Cleopatra stood at the edge of her sunlit terrace, her fingers gripping the balustrade until the carvings left imprints in her palms. The reports had come in fragments, scattered, panicked whispers from servants and soldiers alike. Actium had been a massacre. Her fleet, those proud cedar ships that had carried the Eye of Horus on their sails, now lay splintered beneath the waves. Antony's legions, once the terror of the East, had dissolved into a rabble of deserters. And Octavian, that bloodless son of Rome, was carving his path to her throne with the precision of a surgeon's blade. She closed her eyes. The breeze carried the metallic tang of distant fires. How had it come to this? She'd outmaneuvered Ptolemy brothers, seduced Caesar's ambition, turned Antony's heart to putty, yet here she stood, a queen without a kingdom. A mother without a future. In the dimness of the royal stables, Mark Antony slumped against a pillar, his armor streaked with grime and sweat. The scent of hay and horseflesh clung to him, a far cry from the perfumed halls where he'd once toasted victories with jeweled cups. A boy, barely old enough to shave, burst in. Trembling as he delivered the lie, the queen. She's taken her own life. Antony's sword clattered to the ground before he realized he'd drawn it. The blade felt heavier now, as though the steel had absorbed every regret. He'd gambled empires for her laugh, traded his honor for her bed, and in the end, what remained? A hollowed-out myth, a punchline for Roman poets. He drove the sword home. But death, it seemed, had grown tired of Roman tragedies. Cleopatra's scream tore through the chamber when they dragged him to her. Antony's blood seeped into the mosaic tiles, pooling around the golden falcon of Ra. She cradled his face, her tears cutting tracks through the coal that had smudged her eyes. His breath rattled, a wet, broken sound, and for a heartbeat, his gaze sharpened. "Don't trust him," he rasped. Octavian's name went unspoken. It didn't need to be said. When his chest stilled, she did not weep. She kissed his brow, then rose, her linen gown stained crimson. The guards outside her door shifted uneasily as she passed. Let them think her broken. Let Octavian think her beaten. The figs arrived at dusk, nestled in a basket woven from reeds. The asp lay coiled beneath them, its scales glinting like black pearls. Cleopatra lifted it gently, marveling at the cool weight of its body. This, at least, Rome could not take from her. She lay back on her couch, the snake's fangs biting into flesh as tender as a lover's kiss. The pain was brief, a sting, then a spreading warmth. Her vision blurred at the edges, the frescoed ceiling melting into streaks of gold and azure. Somewhere beyond the haze, she heard shouts, the crash of doors. Too late. Octavian found her as he'd hoped to never find her, serene, unbroken, her diadem still gleaming against the dark spill of her hair. No chains. No surrender. Just a woman who'd turned her death into one final act of defiance. They buried her beside Antony, as Octavian commanded. A gesture he'd later call mercy, though the historians would write it as fear. Fear that even in death, her myth would outlive his triumph. Egypt died with her. The Nile's bounty became Rome's granary, her children vanished into the gilded prisons of the Palatine. But the whispers endured, in Alexandria's back alleys, in the scrolls Greek scholars smuggled to Petra, in the ballads sung by sailors who still swore they'd seen her ghost. Laughing atop the Pharos lighthouse. Cleopatra VII Theophilopator, last pharaoh of Egypt, had become something no empire could conquer, a story. In the next episode, we explore her cultural legacy, how Rome twisted her image, how history remembered her, and how she became one of the most enduring figures in human history. Hit subscribe to keep unraveling it.